TMNT Tournament Fighters on the Sega Genesis is a ridiculously broken fighting game based around grab loops. Even if you ignore that, matches can get really messy at times due to the issues within the gameplay itself.
I've got you now.
However, that doesn't mean you can't get better at this game. In this video, I'll be going over all of the characters and I'll give my opinion on how good they are. I'm going to assume that you have a basic idea on how this game works, but I'll still explain certain mechanics when they come up. You can also check the guide in the description if you want to find out more. Now before we begin, I do have to explain a few things. Let's start with the most important feature that this game has, the power and speed stats. In the one player mode, your stats will be the same as the CPU. When playing against another player, the stats you select will only affect your character. The power stat will affect the frame data of your normal attacks. Having a high power stat will make your normal attacks more active, but that also means you'll have more startup frames and a longer recovery time. Low power won't make your attacks as active, but they will have really fast startup and recovery time. Of course, power also affects the damage to most of your attacks, but that's not a big deal if you're using grab loops. In short, you can play with low power if you prefer using normal attacks as a reaction, or play with high power if you'd rather use them as some kind of hard read. For this video, you'll leave the power on default, which is 4. As for the speed stat, you might as well put it on 8. It affects your walk speed, jump speed, falling speed, and certain special moves will have a faster animation. You could make it lower to make said special moves more active, but then you would be even more open to grab loops since you'll fall down slower. For now, we leave the speed stat on 4, but I will mention speed 8 when it's appropriate. Second, you can only perform desperation moves while your health is low. They are very powerful, but you won't see them often in a match involving grab loops. Lastly, it is possible to block special moves during your special move animation. This doesn't seem to work against normal attacks, special moves that hit low, or desperation moves that put you in an animation. This won't apply to all moves, so I'll mention which ones as we go along. Let's start with Leonardo. Groundswell is a projectile that travels across the ground. It has a near instant startup, but it does leave him open for a brief moment. It'll travel faster if done with B. Jumping Stud will have him jump up with a double slash. It's rather difficult to perform since you might end up performing Groundswell by accident. He will jump up higher if done with B, and the animation speed is affected by the speed stat. This is a pretty good anti-air and it seems to be invincible to attacks as well. Unfortunately, wake up options aren't much of a thing in this game. If you try to do this on wake up, you'll most likely get hit. Rolling Cutter will have him spin forward with his katanas out. The speed and distance will depend on the button pressed. He can also perform this mid-air and the direction he goes in will depend on the jump. He will go backwards if done while jumping back, forward if done from a forward jump, or he will stay in place if done from a neutral jump. When the mid-air animation finishes, he will not only be able to attack on the way down, but he will also be invincible to attacks. Rolling Cutter can also become unblockable if done while the opponent is getting up. As for Leo's desperation move, he'll roll forward and stop at a fixed distance. If he makes contact with a grounded opponent, he'll toss them up, then he'll stab them with his katana. This is a powerful unblockable that can also connect against opponents who are fully knocked down. It won't work if they're airborne. For the case of Groundswell, Rolling Cutter, and his desperation move, you can still block special attacks that don't hit low. As for Leo's normal attacks, Crouch Heavy Punch is a great normal for hitting opponents that jump in. It's very fast and he'll be able to move in for a potential grab loop after landing the hit. If done up close, it can hit low and knock the opponent down. Crouch Heavy Kick is another option for knocking down the opponent. You'll probably get Stand Heavy Punch from trying to grab the opponent, but thankfully it's pretty fast and it can also hit low if done close enough. As for jump attacks, Jump Light Kick and Heavy Kick feels more reliable than Jump Light Punch and Heavy Punch. For grabs, he can toss the opponent backwards by pressing forward plus kick while close, but his best draw is done by pressing forward plus punch. He'll pummel the opponent and they'll be launched up. If you hold forward as they're launched, you can get close enough to grab them again right when they land, leading to a grab loop if done with proper timing. You can escape this grab sooner by meshing the directions on the D-pad, but it won't matter if the opponent loops this grab over and over. Overall, Leo is pretty good. He has a solid moveset and a reliable anti-air that can lead into a grab loop. His Rolling Cutter is very helpful in getting close to the opponent after a knockdown, but Jumping Stud can be rather difficult to perform at first. So in my opinion, I think he's an A tier character. Really good overall, he can pretty much do everything and he can also grab loop very easily. Next up is Raphael. Side Slash will have him fire a projectile from his side. The A version is slow enough in that he can follow it if done at full screen. Meanwhile, the B version would travel faster. Power Drill will have him fly forward while spinning with his sides out. This is a great move since it can hit multiple times on block, can be done mid-air, and he can perform a mid-air normal attack after the animation, even if you did it on the ground. If close enough, the midair normal attack can become unblockable. For this case, I usually hold forward and mash B to get a midair heavy kick. However, it is possible to get grabbed during the end of the animation, though the timing is rather strict. Power drill will go further if done with B, and similar to Leo's rolling cutter, Raph will be invincible on the way down. Spark plug is a charge motion that will have him leap upwards and spin with his size. This move makes for a great anti-air. Not only that, but this move is an overhead on the way down, meaning the opponent has to stand to block it. The animation speed will depend on the speed stat. If it wasn't a charge motion, this move would be ridiculously good. As for his desperation move, Raph will go across the screen. If he makes contact with a grounded opponent, he will perform a powerful flurry of attacks. This can also work against opponents who are fully knocked down, but not while they're midair. If this move connects while his projectile is about to connect, or from behind the opponent, it can delete their entire health bar. For the case of Side Slash, Power Drill, and his Desperation move, Raph can still block special moves that don't hit low. As expected from the side-wielding turtle, his normal attacks don't have a lot of range. Crouch Heavy Punch would be his main anti-air for when he doesn't have Spark Plug ready. Jump Heavy Kick is at its best when used after Power Drill. You can Power Drill into a blocking opponent, then hold forward and mash B in order to hit them with an unblockable midair heavy kick. This can cause a knockdown, which can lead into his grab loop. Like Leo, Raph has a pretty good pummel grab loop. During the grab, he will keep damaging the opponent and they can escape sooner by matching the D-pad. When it ends, the opponent will be launched up and he can hold forward to be close enough to grab them right when they land. If timed properly, there is nothing they can do about this. His back drill can lead into the Desperation move damage boost I mentioned earlier. If he back drills the opponent and connects with his Desperation move before they get up, it will outright end the round. Similar to Leo, Raph is a very good character in this game. Obviously his size don't have as much reach as Katana's, but he makes up for it by having some really good special moves. Because of this, he is an A tier character. Now to go over Donatello. Vacuum Wave is a projectile that requires a charge motion. He can move almost immediately after firing this projectile and it will travel faster if done with B. Rotobo will have him perform a flip upward with his staff out. This is mainly used to hit opponents out of the air, though it can knock down grounded opponents. Animation speed will depend on the speed stat and he will go higher if done with B. Blur Attack will have him attack with multiple strikes rapidly. How long the animation lasts will depend on the button used. Due to the lack of a combo system, this move can leave him wide open even if it hits. The motion makes it pretty easy to perform this by accident as well. It's possible to use this as an anti-air, otherwise you should only use this if you can finish off a low health opponent. If you want this move to knock down, you have to whiff a heavy attack first. Don's Desperation move will have him jump up and perform a spinning roll to the opponent's location. If the opponent is under him during this animation, he'll attack them rapidly from above. It's unblockable, deals a great amount of damage, and can flat out delete the opponent's health bar if it connects while they're getting up. However, the opponent can simply jump away, jump over him, or hit him during the somersault animation with a jump attack. For the case of Vacuum Wave and Blur Attack, Donatello can still block special moves that don't hit low. Despite having a bow staff, it doesn't help Don a whole lot in this game, but he still has some decent normal attacks. Stand Light Punch is a fast poke with good range, and he can hit even further with Stand Heavy Kick. For anti-airing, Crouch Heavy Punch is a decent option if you don't have Rotobo ready. For knocking down the opponent, Crouch Heavy Kick is a good choice. Don can perform a 2-hit normal by pressing forward plus A while close. As for grabs, Don only has one grab. By pressing forward plus B while close, he will toss the opponent very far away. Even on speed 8, he might not be able to get close enough to perform a grab loop. The only exception is if they're tossed close to the corner, in which he can get close enough to grab them again. Unfortunately, Donatello might be the worst character of the main 8. His normal attacks are decent, but his special moves suffer from being charge motions. The only exception is Blur Attack, which is a very situational move that you'll probably perform by accident while walking back and forth. And due to him not having a consistent grab loop, I have to put him in C tier. He is easily the worst character in this game. Now to get into Michelangelo. Hurricane will have him draw out a small hurricane forward. This comes out instantly and has very little recovery time. The hurricane will go much faster if done with B. Chopper Chaka will have him jump up while spinning his nunchakus over his head. This makes for a good anti-air, but unfortunately he cannot perform this while Hurricane is still active. The animation speed is affected by the speed stat and he'll go higher if done with B. Flying Tackle is a charge motion that will have Mike dash forward and attack the opponent on contact. It's relatively safe on block and it has no recovery time. meaning he can immediately act after it misses or doesn't reach the opponent. How far he goes will depend on the button pressed. Like with Chopper Chucker, he can't use this while Hurricane is out. As for his Desperation move, he'll draw a really huge tornado that will travel about half screen before disappearing. This deals a ton of damage, can be used as an anti-air thanks to its size, and it can even stun the opponent in one hit. However, it can be stopped by a normal projectile. In the case of Hurricane, Flying Tackle, and maybe even his Desperation move, he can still block special attacks that don't hit low. As for Michelangelo's normal attacks, Stand Heavy Punch is a fast poke that can also knock down if done at a certain distance. It can also be used as an anti-air from far away. Punch Heavy Kick will knock down on a hit, and Jump Heavy Punch is a 2-hit jumping attack. This makes it useful as both an air-to-air and a jump-in option. If you press forward plus A while close, you get a 2-hit normal attack. Just like Donatello, Mike has a grab that will draw the opponent way too far away. This makes it impossible to perform a consistent grab loop while holding forward. However, it is possible if you're using Flying Tackle right after drawing the opponent. Hold down the second you grab them, then use the B version of Flying Tackle when the animation ends and you should be able to reach the opponent before they recover in time. It's probably the most difficult grab loop in the game, but it can be done. Nonetheless, I think Michelangelo is okay. Mike has a really good projectile, but it disables his other special moves. His normal attacks have surprisingly good range, but his grab loop is difficult to perform. If you can do his grab loop consistently, then he can be a solid character. Because of this, I think he is B tier.
Shock. Cowabunga!
Now it's time for Casey Jones. Stick Lariat will have him perform a spin kick high and then he'll follow up with a spinning stick lariat that hits low. He'll do this twice in a row if done with B. Not only is he invincible during the animation, but he can also move left and right during it. It is key that you master performing this move as it could potentially allow Casey to enter invisibility frames 24/7 with proper timing. But similar to Leo's jumping stud, you can't really use this as a wake up option, as you'll end up getting hit instead. When Casey sets the long bomb, it'll cause a huge explosion after a few beeps. This explosion can hit the opponent and Casey himself. The best time to use this is while the opponent is knocked down, or while they're cornered. Sure, the explosion can hurt Casey as well, while a well-timed stick lariat will allow him to avoid the explosion completely. Rebounder will have him take a stance and spin his stick. If a projectile comes in contact during the animation, he'll reflect it back. This also accounts for desperation moves that act as projectiles. However, this isn't something you should always go for. He'll be stuck in the animation longer when he reflects a projectile, and you could always just stick lariat through them instead. It also won't work against Karai's projectiles and Krang's projectiles. Another interesting fact is that the damage of the reflected projectile would depend on Casey's power stat. It will also go slower than the projectile that was originally thrown. For example, if Casey reflects Ray's Desperation move, the projectile will go slower than when it was coming at Casey. Lastly, it does have a hitbox behind Casey, so technically you can use this to anti-air opponents that jump behind you. I don't really recommend it. Casey's Desperation move is a grab that will have him slam the opponent 4 times in a row. It deals great damage and he will still be close to the opponent if done in the corner. If the opponent is fully knocked down, he can perform this again if he's close enough. Not something you'll use often if you're playing on speed 8 since his regular grab can loop into itself. As for his normal attacks, Light Punch and Heavy Punch can hit pretty far whether you're standing or crouching. Crouch Heavy Punch in particular can be a really good anti-air poke if done from far away. For knocking down, he can use Crouch Heavy Kick. As for his throw, it's similar to his Desperation move, but he'll only slam the opponent once. He won't be able to grab loop on speed 4 since the opponent would be too far away. On speed 8, he'll have barely enough time to catch up for them and grab them again as they're getting up. Outside of his Desperation move, speed 8 is the closest Casey has to having a grab loop. Casey Jones is ridiculously overpowered in my opinion. Far-reaching normals, a special move that makes him invincible, bombs that can lead to guaranteed damage in the corner, and if he wants to, he can reflect projectiles. As strong as he is, he can still lose to one hit from a grab loop, so I think he can sit comfortably in A tier, especially on speed 8. On speed 4 he'd be more of B+, but yeah, I think you get the idea.
Oh. Okay.
And now it's time for the most notorious character in this game, which is April O'Neil. Backdrive Elbow is the only special move that matters. April will leap forward with an elbow attack that has to be blocked while standing. It can hit multiple times on block, has no recovery upon landing, can be used as an anti-air, knocks down on hit, activates instantly, can go over projectiles at the right distance. Did I miss something? Oh yeah, the animation speed is even faster on speed 8. This is your go-to for stomping the CPU and unsuspecting players. Against an experienced player, they can anti-air this move if they anticipate it coming. In some cases, it's possible to block the second hit, then immediately go for a counter attack. Nonetheless, you'll be highly dependent on this move. It's a round ender if you know how to grab loop with April. Ninja Claw will have her slash multiple times in a claw-like motion. For the case of Ninja Claw, she can still block special attacks that don't hit low. It's a fast move that can hit multiple times on block, but she'll be stuck in the animation until it ends. It'll be even longer if you mashed B instead of A. Even if this did knock them down, it's nowhere near as good as Backdrive Elbow. As for Ninja Attack, this is a charge motion that will have her flip back, then jump up and perform a leap towards the opponent's location. This is normally an elbow attack, but if you press A right when she reaches the top of the screen, or you can mash A during the animation, she will instead grab the opponent on contact even if they're midair. This is actually a pretty cool move that can even ignore Casey's invincibility frames during Stick Lariat. Unfortunately, this move is incredibly slow and it'll most likely lead to you getting hit out of the air. Don't use this. Now her desperation move is okay. This is a command grab that will have April toss the opponent up, then she performs a backbreaker on the way down. It deals good damage, but it's not necessary if you already know how to grab loop with April. Still, this can't be used against an opponent who's fully knocked down. As for normal attacks, there's not much I can say here. Outside of Crouch Light Kick having good range and Crouch Heavy Kick being a slide that can knock down on hit, she doesn't have much else in terms of good normal attacks. It really comes down to the fact that Backdrive Elbow is a better option in most cases. If you are going to use her other normal attacks, they should be done to throw the opponent off. Now of course she does have a very useful grab. By pressing forward plus B while close, she will suplex the opponent. She'll still be close enough in that she can walk up and grab loop them before they're able to fully get up. This is easier to do on speed 8, but you can also use Backdrive Elbow to stay close instead. Mastering her grab loop will be your bread and butter alongside Backdrive Elbow. Simply put, April can be considered a one-note character in terms of her game plan. The reason is because she only has one special move worth using. It doesn't help that most of her normal attacks are really bad when compared to most of the cast. This gives her a predictable yet very effective playstyle since her Backdrive Elbow is an incredibly good move. Dare I say one of the best moves in the entire game. Now do keep in mind that plenty of characters can perform a special move and still block her elbow during the animation. Because of this, I do have to put her in A tier. I can't put her any higher since Backdrive Elbow can also cost her the round, but I also won't put her any lower because she is relatively easy to pick up and the move is pretty fast, so get used to reacting to that move, that's what I'm gonna say. Now to get into one of the more obscure characters, which is Ray. Sonic Wave will have him emit a wave of sound forward. This is a pretty decent projectile and it will go faster if done with B. Manta Press will have him leap across the screen and deal damage to the opponent upon contact. He will go even further if done with B. Depending on the distance and the button used, you can land behind the opponent. This move has to be blocked high and the animation will be slightly faster on speed 8. His headbutt will have him fly forward with a headbutt. The button pressed will decide how far he goes. If you delay up plus A or B, you can perform this while jumping. On the way down, he can use a mid-air attack and he'll be invincible until he lands. This move has to be blocked high if done in the air. In fact, you can make this an instant overhead by slightly delaying up plus A or B to make it activate as low to the ground as possible. If the opponent is too small, he might go on the other side instead. His Desperation move will have him fire a huge sound wave that deals a ton of damage and can dizzy the opponent in one hit. It travels fast and it can still deal a good amount of damage if blocked. For the case of Sonic Wave, Headbutt, and his Desperation move, Ray can still block special moves that don't hit low. Now getting into Ray's normal attacks, his best one would have to be Crouch Heavy Kick. This slide is a fast low that can knock down the opponent on hit. If you've gotten used to performing an instant mid-air headbutt, you can make the opponent guess, should they block the slide low, or should they stand up to block the mid-air headbutt high? Stand Heavy Kick is also pretty fast and it can be used as an anti-air at certain distances. Now despite having one grab, it is a pretty good one. By pressing forward plus B while close, Ray will choke the opponent repeatedly. This is a fixed grab animation, meaning the opponent cannot escape sooner. This grab would throw the opponent forward, making it easy for Ray to get close enough to perform a grab loop. I think Ray is a decent character. His moveset is good all around and can use some funny cross-up situations with his Manta Press. I do feel that he's held back by having two special moves that require a charge motion, but he can still grab loop and he has a rather obnoxious sliding normal. Using his slide along with an instant midair headbutt can lead to some nasty high-low mix-ups. Due to these reasons, I think Ray is a B+ character. He's not exactly top tier, but he is still really good in my opinion. Now to go over my favorite character in this game, Sisyphus. He also goes by Musha Beetle in the Japanese version. Beetlejuice will have him spit goo from his mouth. The startup time is rather long, but he can act soon after the projectile is out. The speed of the projectile depends on the button pressed. Beetle Flash will have him rapidly attack with multiple horn thrusts. He'll be stuck in the animation until it ends, making this a risky move to use against a human opponent. It will last longer if done with B, but you can't use this while Beetlejuice is active. Hover Horn will have him slide across the screen with his horn before ending with a horn swing upward. The slide is a low attack that must be blocked multiple times. It deals a good amount of block damage, but it can leave him open if it misses. It also can't be used while Beetlejuice is active. Hover Horn can also become unblockable if used while the opponent is getting up from a knockdown. This Beetle's Desperation move will have him spit out a huge goo projectile that travels slowly, deals a great amount of damage on hit, and still deals a decent amount on block. But unlike Ray's and Michelangelo's Desperation move, it doesn't seem to stun in one hit. Thankfully, Sisyphus is the only character of the main 8 who can block other special moves during any of his special move animations. Just remember that you can't block special moves that hit low in this situation. Now to go over his normal attacks. Crouch Heavy Punch is a solid anti-air that can beat out plenty of moves, but it is rather slow. You will either have to use this as a prediction, or set your power to 1 to make it fast enough to use on reaction. Crouch Heavy Kick is one of his best reaching normals on the ground that can knock down on hit. As for jumping, Jump Heavy Punch is a very active normal that can knock down crouching opponents. He will perform a 2-hit normal if he presses forward plus A while close. Musha Beetle only has one grab, which is done by pressing forward plus B while close. Similar to Ray, this grab has a fixed animation, meaning the opponent cannot mash out of it. It deals good damage and he'll be close enough to start a grab loop. It's unfortunate that I have to say that Sisyphus aka Musha Beetle is not very good. He does have a pretty good grab loop, but his other moves aren't very great. He's the kind of character that needs to rely on good reads or the opponent making a mistake. So yeah, he's my favorite, but he ain't the best. Therefore, I think he belongs in B tier. Being that the upcoming characters are boss characters that can't be played as unless you have the Cowabunga collection or some kind of ROM hack, I won't be putting them on the tier list. And being that there is no official move list for them, all of the move names are unofficial. Let's start with Triceraton. Poison Breath will have him spit out a huge poison cloud at a set distance. This can destroy other projectiles in range and it will knock down the opponent on hit. There seems to be no difference between performing it with A or B. Dino Roll Straight will have him perform a forward leap across the screen while curled into a ball. It's one of the few moves that can hit twice in a row against a crouching opponent. It's very fast and can only be blocked while standing. Unfortunately, he will bounce up when he makes contact with the opponent, leaving him open to a counter attack until he lands. The opponent will have to time their counter attack carefully since the move is still active in this scenario. He'll go even farther if performed with B. Dino Roll Sky will have him fly up in a ball, and then he'll go down in an arc. There's no recovery upon landing and he won't bounce after hitting the opponent. This move can also become unblockable if done up close. The arc will be wider if done with B. And I should also mention that both versions of Dino Roll will have a faster animation on a higher speed setting. Now, interestingly enough, Triceraton is the only boss to have a Desperation move. This Desperation move will have him charge across the screen. If he makes contact with a grounded opponent, he will jump on them multiple times to deal damage. This won't work against airborne opponents, but it can work against opponents who are fully knocked down. It can loop into itself in the corner, and on speed 8, he can loop it anywhere since he'll fall down faster after the animation. And of course, for the case of his Poison Breath and his Desperation move, he can still block special moves that don't hit low. As for his normal attacks, many of Triceraton's jump attacks will be active for a long time. Jump Heavy Kick in particular seems to be active until he lands, even if you do this as early as possible. Crouching as Triceraton will be very helpful thanks to his small hitbox. During this, he can use Crouch Heavy Kick to trip the opponent, or he can keep down plus back held in order to have both of his Dino Roll moves ready. He will perform a 2-hit attack when pressing forward plus A up close. As you'd expect from a boss character, he does have a pretty good grab. By pressing forward plus B while close, Triceraton will chomp at the opponent continuously. They can escape sooner by matching the D-pad. This will launch the opponent upward, allowing Triceraton to perform a grab loop by grabbing them again as they're about to land. Despite being a buff bipedal Triceratops, Triceraton can be very difficult to hit at times. This is due to his crouch animation keeping him very low to the ground. For offense, he has a very fast gap closer, a nasty mid-screen projectile that can negate other projectiles, really good grab range, and of course, an unblockable special move at point blank. Now to talk about Krang, specifically Krang's android. High twin missiles will have him fire 2 missiles from the android's arms. They deal a great amount of damage on hit, but it does have a noticeable amount of recovery time. They'll travel much faster if performed with B. Low trim missiles is similar, except he'll fire 2 missiles from the android's legs. These are meant for characters that can duck under the high trim missiles. Nonetheless, they have similar properties. During high trim missiles or low trim missiles, he can still block special moves that don't hit low. Unfortunately, Krang does not have a desperation move, but his normal attacks have some ridiculous reach. Stand heavy punch and crouch light punch make for some great pokes. Stand heavy kick is also a good poke that can be used to hit opponents out of the air, especially from a distance. His crouch heavy kick is a slide that can lead to a knockdown on hit. In terms of normal attacks, Krang might have the best reaching normal attacks in the game. He only has one grab, which is done by pressing forward plus A while close. He will lift the opponent and then slam them down. Since he slams them forward, he can easily get close enough to perform a grab loop after using this grab. Krang was definitely meant to be a zoner. He can keep his opponents away with his far-reaching normals and his 2 different projectiles. Even if they get close, he can go for a knockdown and start a grab loop. That said, I think he could have been part of the main cast. He's good, but not insanely broken in my opinion. Maybe with more time he might be better than I think. And finally, it's time to go over the big bad herself, Karai. Energy Javelin will have her throw a projectile forward. It will go faster if done with B, and it's surprisingly strong in terms of damage, even more so on power 8. She can also still block special attacks that don't hit low during the animation. Wheel Kick is easily one of the best moves in the game. She will leap forward with a kick that can hit multiple times. If done close enough, it can outright become unblockable. Depending on the distance, it will either keep the opponent standing or knock them down. She can act immediately upon landing and the animation will be extremely fast on speed 8. But similar to Krang, Karai does not have a desperation move. Her normal attacks are pretty decent for someone that doesn't use a weapon. Stand Heavy Punch has good range, comes out fast, and can deal a good amount of damage on hit. It can even stun in one hit on power 8. It will turn into a 2-hit move if done up close. For jumping, she can use Jump Heavy Kick. Her jumping normals can easily get anti-aired, but her fast jump speed, especially on speed 8, can make it very difficult to stop on reaction. She only has one throw, which is done by pressing forward plus B. This back toss deals good damage, can lead into a grab loop thanks to her fast walk speed, and has more range compared to most grabs, to a point where there can be situations where she's in range to grab, but the opponent probably isn't close enough to do the same. It can also be attempted after a wheel kick. The best feature of Karai has to be her unmatched walk and jump speed. Combined with her high damage across the board, she can hit pretty hard. More importantly, her grab range is kinda ridiculous and of course leads into a grab loop. And that goes over all of the characters this game has to offer. Do keep in mind that this game is a bit ridiculous. Grab loops break it in half and it's completely up to you if you want to take this game seriously or not. I myself have a hard time taking this game seriously, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't decent at this one. In any case, thanks a bunch for watching, and in case you forgot, there is a guide in the description that goes into more detail. With that said, have a good day.